And folks, I'm going to continue, excuse me, I want to continue looking at this issue from a standpoint of what's been happening in our schools. Is there a connection between our children struggling with a sense of identity and who they are with what's been happening in public education in America? Join me now to talk about this is FRC Senior Fellow for Education Studies, Meg Kilgannon, who served at the U.S. Department of Education in the Trump administration. Meg, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony.
All right, we were just talking about this crisis, this mental health crisis that's happening in America with adolescents, with teens. And a key part of this is struggling with identity, who they are. And I cannot help but think about what's happening in many classrooms in America where this is being fed with this idea of, pick your own pronoun. We're treating, human life and who God created us as if it's a Mr. Potato Head and we can just put the parts wherever we want to.
I was talking today with a reporter who will sometimes call me on background to talk about story ideas. And she was wanting to write a story about a faith-based school that she had seen. And she said she was really surprised because they had started the founding of this school about 5 years ago. And so while it may look right now, because they're opening now, that this was in a response to the closures and the pandemic and these forces in public education, really what the founders of the school wanted was the opportunity to form children educationally based in Christ and with a Christian foundation to their learning. And discussing this with her really struck me that when you remove this spirituality as a topic from schools and from really being a part of educating a child, something is going to rush into that void. It's the work of childhood to form your identity. And so if we're not going to discuss our identity as Christians, then other forms of identification are going to be necessary. And that's one of the reasons why you see this push for critical race theory and assigning racial identities to students and queer theory, assigning sexual identities to students. This is all because we're not addressing the spiritual needs that children have. And it's not really that big of a surprise that this could be the case.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating because it's so true. I mean, I remember when the children of Israel came out of Egypt. We've just been reading this in our 2-year journey through the Bible, which, folks, by the way, you can join us at that, frc.org/Bible. One of the first things God did for the children of Israel, he said, "You'll be my people and I'll be your God." He gave them a sense of identity. And when you look, I know a lot of blame goes to social media, and believe me, I mean, it has a role to play. Hollywood has a role to play. But I'm thinking about where our tax dollars go into the public education system, where we have schools that are telling students, look, you can change your name, you can decide if you're going to be a boy or a girl, and we're not going to tell your parents. In fact, some schools, it's been disclosed, actually have clothes closets where the kids can change into the clothing of the opposite sex so they can role play at school. I mean,
right.
Talk about creating confusion.
Right. The only reason you need a closet like that is if a student is not able, their parents would not allow them to dress that way at home. So because, kids don't just drop out of the sky into school, they leave their home and their parents and they go to school and they're fed and dressed when they get there, hopefully. And so if a school's providing that kind of transition closet, it's because there is identity work happening, and that's a very destructive kind of a situation, because you need a closet like that when you're hiding a student's perceived identity from the parent. And that's never good, no. Right? To divide parents and children, that is what people who have ill will for children do.
And I would say that public education is fueling the mental health crisis that is taking place among our children. It's not the only factor, but I would say it's a major factor.
It's certainly not a place where we should look for meaningful redress of the mental health crisis.
And all the more reason.
Problem that
all the more reason we need parents to be engaged in the education of their children. We've got resources. Very quickly, tell folks where they can find out more about how they can get involved in their local schools.
Yes, we are at frcaction.org/schools. We have support there for candidates. There's a lot of resource on our website, frc.org, with policy papers and guides to how to deal with these issues that face your family.
Meg Kilgannon, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony.